the government having announced over the weekend that anyone returning from Spain needs to quarantine for 2 weeks, what happens if an employer has granted annual leave and the employee has to quarantine after returning from holiday? Now that might be because the employee knew before they went off on holiday that they would have to quarantine on their return, or it may be that unexpectedly, as with those currently in Spain, the position changes while the employee is away, and when they come home they have to quarantine. Now if the employee's job can be done from home, that's hopefully relatively straightforward. They'll come back from holiday, quarantine and work from home. But it's not so straightforward, and if an employee's job can't be done from home. An employee shouldn't just expect to be granted 2 additional weeks leave to quarantine. Operationally, that might be difficult for the employer who has granted leave for a period of time, expecting that the employee will come back from that period of annual leave at the agreed time. Maybe other colleagues are going off on holiday, and there's an expectation that that employee will be back to cover the work of those colleagues who are then going off on holiday later. So employers need to tell their employees that if they're leaving the country at all, they need to discuss that in advance so that plans can be put in place in the event that quarantine is required, either expectedly or unexpectedly. And any employee who just jets off and then comes back and says they need to quarantine risks disciplinary action. Now, an employer can't just assume that if someone has to quarantine that they are entitled not to pay that employee. So what we're recommending is clear communication in advance, where the employer tells the employee that if they're leaving the country, they really should discuss that so that plans can be put in place. So if the job can be done from home, that will probably be the answer. If the job can't be done from home and the employer can grant the additional time that's going to be required for the employee to quarantine, then the some of the options are as follows. So they may consider a period of furlough. If the employee has previously been furloughed, this is a good option. The period of holiday and indeed then the period of quarantine could be treated as time on furlough. Alternatively, by agreement, some additional annual leave may be taken when the employee returns, or some unpaid leave, or a combination of the two, some additional annual leave and some unpaid leave by agreement. And it's just important for both sides, for the employer and the employee, that there's clear communication and that the expectations on both sides are managed so that the employee knows what's required in terms of when they have to return to work, and what the position will be in relation to pay for any period of quarantine.